I compiled this video last night featuring a number of the most horrifying crocodile attacks covered on the channel thus far. This includes the story of a pro soccer player who was snatched by a croc while cooling off at a river after practice, the chilling account of a man who was brutally killed after falling into a crocodile pit, the fatal attack on a woman who'd been celebrating a successful cancer treatment with her best friend in the treacherous waters of northern Australia, and much more. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're new. You're watching When Crocodiles Attack. The following video delves into one of North Australia's most chilling crocodile attacks in recent history. In May of 2016, Cairns woman Leanne Mitchell met up with her best friend Cindy Waldron at northern Queensland's remote Thornton Beach. Having flown up for a weekend getaway to celebrate a hard-fought victory against cancer, a rejuvenated Leanne was by all accounts excited to start a new chapter in her life. And what better way to do this than a vacation with a friend that she'd met all the way back in high school?
We were at school together, yeah.
School friends?
High school, yep. She was 14 and I was 15. She was so loyal, so loving, so kind, so generous, so funny. Cindy was the sister that I chose for myself. I always wanted a sister and she was it.
Cindy and Leanne's bond was so strong, in fact, that even as life's journey took them on different paths, with Leanne moving to Cairns, they would, despite their distance, frequently keep in touch, leaning on each other during life's ups and downs. In times of joy as well as hardship, they were each other's anchor, an aspect of their friendship that would eventually become crucial, especially once Leanne's life had taken a fateful turn after receiving a devastating breast cancer diagnosis.
Well, I'm not very good at this, but anyway, hello, hope you're good, love you, I'm okay, I'm much better, I'm alive.
It was during this extremely challenging time that Cindy would demonstrate just how unconditional her love, support, and not to mention her loyalty for Leanne really was, being not just a pillar of strength, but a friend that was the first, and perhaps only one, to offer such unwavering support and companionship.
Her life was always crazy busy, and I said, love, you just can't, you don't have time. And she said, doesn't work like that, does not work like that. I'm gonna be there, whether or not, whatever you say, I'm gonna be there. So she came the night before, and I remember I've got a photo that's the screensaver on my phone. So we were huddled there together, and it's so apparent on my face that I'm scared stiff. And Cindy's got a look on her face, which is, she just looks like she's got it. She's got it. I've got you, babe. I've got you.
It was with Cindy's support that Leanne completed the grueling treatment and would eventually receive good news that her cancer was in remission. It was at this point that the girls were not just relieved, but ecstatic, and would thus plan what turned out to be a fateful weekend getaway, just the two of them.
We were just so full of this joy of being together in that place, alone. Because we've been friends since we were little girls, when it was just her and I, it was like being little girls again.
On that fateful day in May of 2016, an excited Leanne and Cindy packed up their car and made the trip north to Daintree Rainforest, where they'd planned to stay at a friend's place on the beach. This far north region of Queensland is remote, and though it's undoubtedly beautiful, it's also located right in the heart of croc country. Upon arrival at the hotel, it wasn't long before an eager Cindy and Leanne would check into their hotel rooms and head out to the beach to start their celebration.
We just wanted to run around, and that was exactly what we did. And in the process of doing that, we ended on the water's edge. We ended up on the water's edge, ear to here. It was really dark. Cindy's back was to the water and mine was to the beach. And we were laughing, and then Cindy cried out to me, and she said, it's got me. And I thought that it was just that fright that you get when you're in the water and something like seaweed brushes you. And so I put my arms out, and she took my arms, and I said, I've got you, Pat. I've got you. It's okay, I've got you. And she was holding me, and I was holding her. We were pulled. We were pulled. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. Both arms, we had our arms wrapped around each other. The force was incredible. And in that, I lost one arm. I lost this arm. I'm still holding her, and it stopped. We stopped, and we'd travelled a big distance. I couldn't feel the ground any longer. Couldn't feel anything under my feet. And I've put my hand out I realised there was something, and I put my hand out, and I felt the top of its head. Then I started trying to punch and trying to hit and trying to fight, and I was screaming and just trying to fight. And then all of a sudden, we were taken again with the same amount of force. We were taken, and I held on as much as I could. I was clawing onto her arm, and I was trying to get the other arm up to try and grab her, and I couldn't. And then she was gone. I dived down, and I couldn't see anything, and I was feeling around, frantically trying to feel and diving down and trying to feel for anything. I was trying to feel, and I had to recognise what it was, and I knew I had to get help. I knew that Cindy's best chance would be for me to get help quickly, and the only help I could give was by screaming Cindy's name, screaming for her to come back.
After the horrifying attack, Leanne was quickly taken to the hospital with serious injuries, including puncture wounds on her arm that she sustained while trying to save Cindy. As she coped with the immense shock and physical trauma of the incident, an extensive search operation meanwhile unfolded. Police and SES volunteers would set up strategically placed crocodile traps and meticulously comb the land and water around Daintree National Park in search of any signs of Cindy. During this time, Cindy's father Pat and sister Annalie Annette would be informed of the tragic news and immediately make their way from New Zealand to Cairns. They would then journey to Thornton Beach, assumed to be the last known chapter in Cindy's adventure-filled life. There, amidst the waves and wind, they would acknowledge the search team's dedication, and Pat, with a hint of his daughter's intrepid spirit, shared fond memories of Cindy's passion for outdoor adventure, and also noted that she would have been well aware of the risks that came with each one of them. It wasn't until a month later that wildlife authorities would finally capture and euthanize a 4.3-meter saltwater crocodile near the site of the attack, and after performing a necropsy, they would inside this croc find the remains of Cindy, the grim discovery bringing at least some semblance of closure to Leanne as well as her family.
Your feet on the ground, you've got the beautiful water around your legs. I didn't realise. Somebody just said to me the other day that they only need something like, 30 centimetres of water or something. I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know that.
Do they need to be reduced in areas where people are going about the business of their lives, where the weather is beautiful year round? Yeah. And if it's going to prevent attacks and deaths? Yeah. And if it's going to be in areas where we wouldn't ordinarily presume them to be? Yeah. It's common sense, isn't it?
The following video features the detailed account of a tragedy that took place earlier this year in Costa Rica, when 29-year-old professional soccer player Jesus Chucho Ortiz was fatally attacked by a crocodile after a routine training session. Santa Cruz, in Costa Rica's beautiful Guanacaste province, throbs with the energy of its people and the calm beauty of its surroundings. It's a place where children's laughter mingles with the calls of the wild, where every turn of the street has a tale to tell, and where everyone you see is usually someone you know. Jesus Ortiz, also known as Chucho once again, distinguished himself from the crowd thanks to his impressive athleticism and charming personality. Chucho was a mainstay in the local football scene, a midfielder whose skills had gained him respect on the pitch as well as admiration off of it. He was a devoted husband and father of two by the time he was 29, and he still, despite this, found time to play professional football, which was of course a testament to just how much he loved the game. On July 29th of 2023, the sun was harsh and high above Santa Cruz, forcing residents to seek out shade. And the same might be said about Chucho, who went to the Canis River to cool off. Visitors often flocked here to cool off from the tropical heat, as well as enjoy recreational activities like fishing, swimming, or even simply taking in the scenery, making it a hotspot for both locals and tourists alike. However, the river is not just a place for human recreation. It is also home to a diverse array of wildlife. In fact, one of its most conspicuous inhabitants just happened to be the American crocodiles, reptiles who inspire both intrigue and dread. These predators are critical to the maintenance of ecological balance and are an essential component of the river's cycle of life. American crocodiles, or scientifically known as Crocodylus acutus, are commonly found throughout freshwater habitats spanning the Americas. They can be observed throughout the northernmost region of South America through to the southernmost point of Florida. Additionally, they're able to survive in brackish waters, which is a mixture of both freshwater and saltwater. The crocodiles inhabit an ideal habitat in the Canis River, owing to its favorable climate and abundant dietary resources. Now, while crocodile attacks on humans are rare, crocodiles are in fact one of the most dangerous animals when it comes to attacks on humans worldwide. Now, these attacks, they typically occur especially if the animals feel threatened or are protecting their territory. They can many a time see us as an easy meal. The locals are generally aware of the presence of these predators and are as a result often cautious when entering the water. However, these crocs are usually elusive, which is why sightings in a lot of areas can be infrequent, leading some to underestimate the potential danger.
Crocodiles will hunt human beings. They will lock in outside of a small village or an area that someone's collecting water. They'll spend weeks watching, studying the pattern, learning the behavior, and just wait for the perfect time where they can sink under, sit right there waiting for someone to gather water. They're not distinguishing that from another prey animal. They just know this thing's coming to water here at this pattern, and they will absolutely target people.
Now, despite their frightening appearance, it's worth noting that they are generally less aggressive than their more notorious relatives, the Nile and saltwater crocodiles. Chucho, having decided to take a swim in the river to cool off after practice, was unaware that on that scorching Saturday afternoon, he was being stalked by a fully grown American crocodile, who'd been watching his every move. The stealthy crocodile then struck with such speed and force that Chucho likely had no time to react, and was thus overpowered by the massive reptile. It's important to note that according to reports, it's not quite clear how the attack unfolded, but American crocodiles, who are known for their powerful bites and quick reflexes, are known to be swift during such attacks, and it's widely believed that this croc likely pulled Chucho underwater in a matter of seconds and drowned him, which is of course for crocodiles common practice and is typically the manner in which they neutralize their prey before feasting on them. And while the details of the initial struggle are not fully known, the outcome was of course devastating. The Canis River, which had been a source of life and laughter for the community, had now become a stage for a tragedy that would leave a lasting imprint on the hearts of all who knew Chucho. The town pulled together, united by their shock and sorrow, to mourn Chucho's loss and offer their support and condolences to his grieving family. Not to mention videos had surfaced, one of which went viral, showing the crocodile holding a lifeless Chucho in its jaws and swimming away with him. Now, due to this platform's restrictions, I'm not able to show that video here, but what I will do is I'm going to put it on my Rumble, which I'll leave a link to in the pinned comments. For those of y'all who want to watch it, once again, I don't suggest that you watch it. Viewer discretion is highly advised, but if you do have this morbid curiosity, or if there's any reason you do want to watch it, then you can watch it on Rumble for free, or you could even watch it on Patreon, which I'll also upload it to, where you can not only help support this channel, but also view videos that I'm not otherwise able to share on YouTube. In light of the gravity of the situation, the local authorities acted swiftly and a specialized team would be dispatched to fetch Chucho's body. Sadness pervaded the community as word of the attack spread. Deportivo Rio Canas, Chucho's football team, devastated by the loss, would also offer their deepest condolences on social media. And to illustrate just how united and caring the people of Santa Cruz are, the club in the town organized a fundraiser to help Chucho's grieving family with funeral costs and the like. And on the night of August 1st, the streets of Guanacaste province were lined with more than 1,000 mourners, and a night procession for Chucho showed just how much of an impact he had on his community and how adored he truly was. White heart-shaped balloons, trophies, and portraits of Chucho were held high as his coffin passed by, triggering profound silence, punctuated only by the soft sobs of those who had come to say their final goodbyes. Chucho's mother, Giselle Ortiz Cubello, amidst her heartbreak, would go on to express her deepest gratitude for the overwhelming support, both emotional and financial, that the family received. There are no words. I know God will bless them, and if it hadn't been for them, I don't know what I would have done. Those were the strong words of a mother reflecting on how her community's response was a beacon of light in the darkest of times. A reminder that even in the face of tragedy, the human spirit's capacity for kindness and togetherness prevails. The incident at Canis River left a void in the fabric of Santa Cruz, one that may never quite be filled. The loss of Chucho was not just a personal tragedy for his family, especially his wife and his children, but once again a communal one, which is why his legacy will continue to live on through the memories of his sportsmanship, his role as a coach, and most of all, his devotion as a family man. As the municipality of Santa Cruz continued to negotiate the consequences of that sad day, the memory of Jesus Alberto Lopez Ortiz remains a painful reminder of the fragility of life, as well as the resilience of a community united in love and loss. In the lush landscapes of Cambodia, where the mighty Mekong River meanders through its dense forests and ancient temples stand tall, a series of harrowing events cast a shadow of dread over the region in September of 2022. And this wasn't just the work of a ghostly apparition or a mythical creature, but rather a very real and deadly apex predator, one that is widely feared around the globe: crocodiles. In Cambodia, crocodile farming is a thriving industry, with many farms rearing these magnificent creatures for their valuable skin and meat. However, as with any venture that involves wild animals, there are inherent risks. Enter Mr. Luan Nam, a 72-year-old farmer whose life was deeply intertwined with the rhythms of the Cambodian countryside. Born and raised in the shadows of the ancient Angkor temples, Nam had witnessed the ebb and flow of life along the banks of the Tonle Sap River near the city of Siem Reap. The Tonle Sap, Southeast Asia's largest freshwater lake, teems with over 200 species of fish, including the rare Mekong giant catfish. Its skies are dotted with birds from the nearby Prektol Bird Sanctuary, a haven for endangered waterbirds. The surrounding wetlands whisper tales of elusive mammals like the smooth-coated otter and the fishing cat, and of course these waters are also home to the stealthy and critically endangered Siamese crocodile. It was along these very banks of the Tonle Sap that Nam would go on to establish his crocodile farm, a sprawling expanse that became home to over 1,000 of these prehistoric reptiles. Nam wasn't just a farmer. He was widely regarded, in fact, as a crocodile whisperer of sorts, and was also president of the local Crocodile Farmers Association. For decades, he seized the opportunity to study and nurture these creatures right from when they were tiny hatchlings through to their adulthoods, and this went on to allow him to know his crocodiles like no other. He would learn each one of their quirks, as well as their body language, enabling him to tell when they were agitated, hungry, or just wanting a lazy day in the sun. He would often recount tales of his incredible close encounters with these beasts to his grandchildren, ones that consisted of moments when he looked into a crocodile's eyes and saw not just a mindless beast, but a sentient living being with its own thoughts and emotions. This deep connection and understanding that he had with his crocs went on to earn him respect in the eyes of many, including fellow farmers and the local community. In fact, many other practitioners of the activity would seek his advice on crocodile rearing, and by all accounts he was always eager to share his wisdom. However, as the saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. As Nam's levels of comfort around these ancient predators grew by the day, it would pave way for what was to many an inevitability: human error in the form of a momentary lapse in judgment, a fateful mistake that would set the stage for the tragedy that followed. On September 18, 2022, the morning sun cast its golden rays over Mr. Nam's crocodile farm, signaling the start of another day. As was his routine for decades, Mr. Nam began his day with a thorough inspection of the farm. Armed with his trusty checklist and a keen eye for detail, he moved as he usually would from one enclosure to the next, ensuring that the water levels were right, the feeding mechanisms were working, and the fences were intact. Nam's farm was once again a sprawling expanse near the Tonle Sap, and was divided into multiple enclosures, each housing a specific age group of crocodiles. The adult enclosure, home to the largest and most formidable of his reptilian charges, was always the one that he would approach with even more caution than he did the others. As he neared the adult enclosure, he had noticed that one of his crocs had been making its way to a bunch of freshly laid eggs in the cage. This prompted the experienced 72-year-old to enter the enclosure to remove the crocodile, and with a stick in hand, he would attempt to corral the creature away from the eggs. However, this is when disaster would strike, when the powerful reptile would suddenly lunge forth, latch onto his stick, and pull him swiftly into the water with little effort. The sound of Nam splashing would instantly set off the predatory instincts of every croc in the enclosure, and within moments, Nam found himself surrounded by over 40 fully grown and now highly triggered crocodiles. For a brief moment, the atmosphere inside the enclosure was palpable with an eerie stillness, and time seemed to stand still. Mr. Nam, despite his shock, knew that any sudden movements would trigger an attack, and so he tried to remain as calm as possible, hoping to find an escape route. However, the crocodiles, ever opportunistic predators, would sense the vulnerability and quickly figure out that Nam was prey. And this is when, one by one, they would begin to move toward him rapidly, their powerful tails propelling them through the water with astonishing speed, their eyes locked on Nam with an unwavering, predatory gaze. It was at this point that the first croc would lunge, its massive jaws clamping onto Nam's arm. This initial move seemed to be the signal for the others, and this is when in an instant, the enclosure turned into a chaotic whirlpool of thrashing tails, snapping jaws, and splashing water. The Siamese crocodile, also known as Crocodilus siamensis, is native to the freshwater habitats of Southeast Asia. These apex predators have behaviors that are deeply rooted in instinct. When potential prey, in this case a human, suddenly intrudes upon their territory, especially in such an abrupt and uncalculated manner, this can quickly set off their predatory responses. This holds especially true in the confines of an enclosure where their natural escape routes are restricted. In their natural habitats, Siamese crocodiles have been observed displaying cooperative hunting behaviors, particularly when confronting larger or more challenging prey. But humans, lacking the natural defenses of other prey animals, present a much easier target, which is why the relative vulnerability of a human in such a situation can further intensify the crocodile's predatory instincts. Not to mention, within the limited space of a farm enclosure, the dynamics certainly change. The proximity of multiple Siamese crocodiles can ignite a competitive feeding frenzy. In such scenarios, each crocodile, driven by both hunger and competition, vies aggressively to secure its share, amplifying the danger manifold. And this behavior is not necessarily driven by hunger alone. The sudden intrusion of a potential prey item can also create a heightened state of excitement, as well as agitation among the crocodiles. And in such scenarios, their natural caution can be overridden by the immediate opportunity to feed, leading to rapid and aggressive responses. Despite his years of experience and familiarity with these creatures, the combined force of multiple agitated crocodiles in a confined space left him with little chance, and his deep understanding of these animals, as well as his attempts to fend them off, were of course tragically no match for their coordinated assault and overpowering strength. Once the frenzy subsided, the water settled, revealing a scene of utter devastation. The crocodiles, their primal urges momentarily satisfied, would return to their usual spots, basking under the sun, their demeanor now deceptively calm. The only testament to the horror that had just unfolded was the eerie silence that enveloped the farm. News of Mr. Nam's tragic demise would go on to resonate deeply, sending shockwaves far beyond the confines of the local community. National newspapers and TV channels picked up the story, recounting the tale of the seasoned crocodile farmer who met an untimely end in the jaws of the very creatures he had cultivated with such care. The tragedy sparked debates and discussions on wildlife conservation, the ethics of keeping wild animals in captivity, and the inherent risks involved. It would also go on to prompt a nationwide review on safety protocols in wildlife farms, and farm owners would go on to be mandated to undergo periodic safety training. Mr. Nam's legacy, however, wasn't forgotten. His family, determined to honor his passion for wildlife, would go on to transform a part of the farm into a conservation and education center. Here, visitors would learn about the importance of respecting wild animals, especially crocodiles, and understanding the fine line between admiration and safety. The devastating story of Luan Nam stands as a stark reminder till this day of the inherent risks associated with interacting with wild animals, even in controlled environments. In fact, as the former president of the local Farmers Association, Nam was frequently advised by those close to him to leave the risky business behind, but of course his love for the creatures outweighed any fear he had of his own life, and despite his years of experience and familiarity with the crocodiles, it would be a single moment of vulnerability that would tragically cost him his life. In today's episode, we unravel the chilling case of Isabel Von Jordan, a young interior design graduate from Germany who embarked on what was supposed to be a celebratory trip to Australia's Kakadu National Park, only to find herself and her companions in a life-ending encounter with a saltwater crocodile. Like or subscribe if you're new. You're watching When Crocodiles Attack. In the ancient landscapes of Australia's Kakadu National Park, Glenn Robles, a 13-year-old veteran tour guide, led a group of international tourists on a 4-day adventure. Among them were 2 German sisters, aged 21 and 23. The sisters were natives of Munich, Germany, and were on what was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. Freshly graduated with a degree in interior design from the Technical University of Munich, Isabel was known as a young woman full of ambition and creativity. She was highly regarded by her peers for her keen eye in aesthetics and a passion for sustainable design. She'd already garnered some national attention, in fact, from the design community back home. Isabel's trip to Australia was not just supposed to be a vacation, it was a celebration of her recent academic achievement and a well-deserved break before she dove into her budding career. Accompanied by her 21-year-old sister Valerie, the journey was meant to be a joyous occasion, a chance to explore, unwind, and also make lasting memories. The group also included James Rothwell, a young Brit from Essex, and Carmen Woolley, another German tourist. Glenn was not just another tour guide, he was in fact a maestro in his field and highly renowned in the tourism industry. Originally from the coastal city of Darwin, he'd always been captivated by the untamed beauty of Australia's wilderness. This passion of his would lead him to taking up a career as a tour guide, the kind of job that made 9-to-5ers question their life choices as they scrolled through his adventure-filled social media feed, much of which included videos and pictures of him introducing travelers to the awe-inspiring vistas of Kakadu, its ancient Aboriginal rock art, and of course its vibrant ecosystems, teeming with a variety of unique wildlife. But even in a paradise like this, danger also lurked. Warning signs about saltwater crocodiles were as ubiquitous as the breathtaking views. These signs, translated into multiple languages, served as stark reminders that the beauty of nature often comes with risks. They were sort of like dissonant notes in an otherwise harmonious symphony of natural wonders. On what was the very last night of their trip, the group had set up camp near Sandy Creek Billabong, a waterhole so serene that it seemed to defy the warning signs staked around its perimeter. Despite his experience and an array of glaring signs, it was Glenn who at this point would have a crucial lapse in judgment. A pile of mussel shells on the shore seemed to suggest that local Aboriginal women had deemed the water safe, and to add on to his growing sense of security, even a flashlight scan for crocodile eyes would yield nothing. Glenn was at this point convinced of the water's safety and would give the crew the all clear. One rightly cautious backpacker would even question him 3 times, but Glenn would go on to reassure him that he'd been making the right call. The group, including the Von Jordan sisters, took the plunge, their laughter echoing in the night air. Andrew Waters, a British tourist, would stay ashore, engrossed in his attempt to play the didgeridoo. It was at this point that in a heartbeat, the atmosphere would shift from one of carefree jubilance to palpable dread. A sudden, horrifying realization swept over the group. Isabel was nowhere to be seen. The laughter which had filled the air just moments ago would then morph into gut-wrenching screams, and the once playful splashes turned into frantic strokes as everyone made a dash for the shore. James Rothwell, who had felt a bump against his leg, initially thought that it was a prank by one of his friends, but now he understood the grim reality of how close he was to sharing Isabel's fate. He was among those who reached the shore first, his heart pounding in his chest as he grabbed a flashlight. What he saw next was the stuff of nightmares. The glint of a crocodile's eyes, illuminated by the flashlight's beam, moving away from the group. And like a scene straight out of a horror movie, Isabel could be seen in its jaws as a crocodile then retreated into the dark, murky depths of the billabong. On the shore, Andrew Waters dropped his didgeridoo as his face turned ashen. He too had also heard the screams, and like the others, had initially thought that it was a bad joke. But after the frenzied scramble to shore and the subsequent head count, it became painfully clear that Isabel was missing, and the group was now facing a horrifying reality that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Emergency services were summoned, and a harrowing night-long search would commence. The park rangers, armed with harpoons and flashlights, scoured the billabong and its tributaries, and in what was a race against time, despite their best efforts, it wasn't until the next morning that they'd found what they'd been dreading. Isabel's body was discovered in the tributary of the South Alligator River, about 2 kilometers from where she'd gone missing, and the crocodile responsible for the attack was a behemoth, nearly 4.6 meters long and weighing about 500 kilograms. It was later harpooned and Isabel's body was retrieved, but not without difficulty, as another large crocodile menacingly circled the area. After Isabel's body was found and the crocodile responsible was identified, questions would begin to swirl about why the crocodile had chosen to attack Isabel and not someone else in the group, such as James Rothwell, who once again had felt the crocodile brush past him and was left pondering why he'd been spared. Gary Lindner, a Kakadu ranger involved in the search and rescue operation, offered an intriguing theory during the inquest. With a notion of caution acknowledging the sensitive topic, he suggested that the crocodile may have targeted Isabel because she was small and female. He also went on to recount an experience where he'd seen a crocodile act aggressively toward a boat carrying women while completely ignoring a nearby boat filled with men. With due respect to the women in court, he mused, I've always wondered whether factors like the menstrual cycle could influence a crocodile's behavior. From a scientific standpoint, crocodiles are known to be motile, natatorial, and sedentary, which means they're highly mobile in water, but generally remain stationary when not in pursuit of prey. This behavioral pattern adds another layer of complexity to understanding why the crocodile acted the way it did. Was it the movement of the water, the size of the individual, or some other unknown factor that triggered the attack? As a side note, I am really interested to know your thoughts on this, so please do leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Why did this crocodile act the way it did? Do crocodiles actually prefer females over males? And do you think menstrual cycles are actually a factor and affects a crocodile's preferred choice between male and female? While Linder's theory remained speculative, it added yet another layer of complexity to an already baffling and tragic event, and served as a chilling reminder that despite our advances in understanding animal behavior, the motivations of wild creatures like crocodiles remain largely inscrutable. The aftermath of the tragedy was a complex tapestry of emotions, legal proceedings, and soul-searching. Glenn Robles would find himself in the eye of the storm, which extended far beyond the Billabong's tranquil waters. He was initially considered for a manslaughter charge, but this was later downgraded to a lesser charge of causing death by dangerous omission. After pleading guilty, he received a 3-year suspended sentence, a verdict that left him grappling with a lifetime of regret, but spared him from immediate imprisonment. The legal proceedings also included an inquest into Isabel Von Jordan's death, which revealed yet another layer of tragedy. Contrary to initial assumptions, Isabel had in fact not succumbed to the injuries inflicted by the crocodile's powerful jaws. Instead, it was found that she died from drowning, a detail that only intensified the sorrow surrounding her untimely demise. And Valerie, Isabel's sister, was left to navigate a labyrinth of grief and loss. She would go on to return back home to Munich, forever changed, carrying with her the heavy burden of a holiday that turned into a nightmare. The incident sent ripples through the tourism industry and the local community, prompting renewed discussions about the safety measures and the responsibilities of tour guides. It went on to serve as a grim reminder that even in the most idyllic settings, nature's rules are non-negotiable and its penalties severe. If this episode piqued your interest, then our previous episode, featuring some of the most brutal bear attacks on record, is likely to do the same. You can find it on the end screen of this video.